Hey, what's up, everyone? Mark Levinsky again, just checking in third day. So today's video, I kind of wanted to go over some basic stuff again, more or less what you should do to make sure that your business is successful before you actually start it. What that means basically is kind of creating an outline of what you want to do, how you're going to do things, capital sources, investor relations, types of products, marketing structure, all those things. So for me specifically, I'm building a real estate business. I'm building a fix and flip wholesale buy and hold residential business first in conjunction with a commercial version as well after about 2 or 3 years of success in the residential business. And so my model consists of predominantly borrowing a specific type of capital, using a certain portion of that capital to cover debt servicing for up to 12 months, and then using the rest of it for working capital to produce income to cover years 2, 3, and 4 debt services, but also have capital, again, to do the same thing I did the first year in terms of producing the same amount of revenue. So for me, my first step in terms of that business structure was trying to determine what type of entity I wanted. So there are three, by no means am I an attorney or an accountant or a CPA. I'm just an Arizona realtor, Arizona real estate agent, specific to my knowledge in my investments. So this is just my personal experience. I'm not giving anybody advice. I'm not in the position to give anybody advice. Before you make any decisions on your entrepreneurship, consult with the proper people that you need to consult with, whether that be attorneys, CPAs, whatever. Um, so this is just something that I've personally done. I've created an outline that kind of goes through a five year amortization schedule on how much money I need to borrow to be successful, how much money I need, how many deals I need to turn, how many wholesales I need to sell, how many real estate fix and flips I do, how many buy and holds I want in terms of that 5 year period. Do I want to be able to use 1031 exchange? What I need to purchase those properties at if President Biden does change it. So like I've thought about those things. I kind of created the entity structure. So there are three major structures that I've seen personally that really affect the business. There's a LLC, a corporation, or a nonprofit. There are two others. There's sole proprietor. That's basically you operating without an entity. There's no limited liability protection. And there's also partnerships. Partnerships can be joint ventures. They could be syndications. They could be two people coming together that are sole proprietors and then creating a partnership. They could be a limited liability partnership, like a corporation partnership. I mean, it's just a partnership. It's just two people or companies coming together to conduct a specific business process. It could be long-term, it could be short-term. It just depends on the situation of that particular business. But the primary ones that I focus on personally are my nonprofit, LLCs, and corporations. There are two types of corporations. It's usually if you create your own entity, it comes down to what you file your EIN with the irs.gov website, whether or not it's a corporation or an S Corp, C Corp or an S Corp. The difference between an S Corp and a C Corp comes down to the utilization of the business. C Corps are typically used to raise capital, specifically going public, selling stocks, raising capital through the stock exchange. That's how I see it. That's not necessarily what it is. They also pay a different amount of taxes. They're double taxed. So stockholders pay taxes or shareholders pay taxes, and then the business itself pays taxes. And then also, which isn't commonly said, the employees also pay taxes. So there are really three layers of taxes. There is the shareholders or equity owners that pay taxes, the corporation itself pays taxes, and then the employees pay taxes. And if you are a CEO or a director, you're probably going to pay on all three. So especially if you work in the business or are employed by the business paying yourself a W-2 wage and you have shares because you own 51% of the company, you're going to pay taxes on your shares. You're going to pay taxes because you own the business, and you're going to pay taxes because you're an employee. So understanding you're probably going to be paying three taxes 3 times. So kind of figure out what type of entity works best for you. What I would personally recommend, and this is a recommendation, I'm not an attorney by any means or CPA, so contact your attorney, CPA, and get advice from them. But I recommend if you're making below $50,000, you're a sole proprietor, I would recommend getting an LLC because they're easy to set up. There's no shares involved. It's just you managing it's just a member managed business. So you have the limited liability protection, assuming you're not performing something to pierce the corporation veil or corporate veil as it's called. Basically, you have a business that's smaller than you, that you basically destroy to borrow money from, performing an LLC as an alter ego as to yourself, committing fraud or misrepresentation or negligence. And there's another one, I just can't remember what it is. But basically, piercing the corporate veil. There are 4 major ways to do that, and it can be done in numerous amounts of ways in those 4 categories. So, make sure that you understand and you speak with an attorney that specifically knows those ways and determines what particular entity is good for what you're trying to do. But if you're making less than $50,000, I typically would recommend getting an LLC because those are good for smaller sources of revenue. It's like operating like a sole proprietor, but with the limited liability protection. If you make more than $50,000 a year, I would recommend start looking into an S Corp. That's simply filing a corporation through your state's website or municipality to create an entity. And then going to the irs.gov. And then once you have your documents and your business structure created, then filing and electing for corporation S Corp taxation structure. It's a little bit more expensive. It's a lot more expensive in terms of taxes than an S Corp or an LLC. But when you're making that much revenue, it's important that you have shares, and it's important that you operate as a corporation and you maintain it like a corporation because of the amount of revenue you're pulling in. But obviously, an LLC works just as well. It's just dependent on the level of growth that you want to experience. So, first things first, you need to kind of create your entity. You need to kind of create the purpose of your business. Do you want to sell clothes? Do you want to create food? Do you want to flip burgers? Do you want to flip real estate? Do you want to sell mortgages? Do you want to raise capital? And then you need to make sure that you have the correct types of licensures. So for instance, if I was going to start a syndication, I would need to have several entities that I have involved with that syndication, LLC, S Corp, syndication structures. And then I need to speak to a securities attorney that specializes specifically in setting up that syndication in accordance with a Series 7 license, a hedge fund, and anybody that I pull in money from, and then specifically allow me to market what I'm trying to do in terms of raising capital publicly. And so then I could start posting that on Facebook, Craigslist, a billboard, the internet, a website, my website, wherever I want to put it. That's where I get, once I have that syndication document or the securities license required to borrow money, I can do that. So, once you've kind of created your purpose of the type of business that you want, you've kind of sort of gotten a plan together, then you need to create the entity, you need to create the EIN, you need to request your DUNS number. So you go to Duns and Bradstreet, you get an entity that's pretty simple. You get a Duns and Bradstreet number, then you open you can or can't list yourself on Triple B. I personally will be, once I get my entity documents and I've got my EIN and my DUNS number, I will be listing myself on a Triple B. Then you want to have you want to make sure that you're paying for a business address, whether that be virtual or you actually have a place of business that you conduct business. I wouldn't recommend using your personal residency as a place of business, because if you choose to borrow money later on and you're a sole proprietor or you're an LLC that uses your home of record to conduct your business because you have a home office, eventually when you start borrowing capital from banks and getting lines of credits and stuff, a lot of big banks and businesses will actually turn you down because you have an LLC that operates out of your home. I don't know why they do that, but a couple things that lending institutions look for, or creditors look for, is uh, business address, website. Are you listed with a triple B? Obviously, you have to have an EIN number, employer identification number. That's basically a business entity's LLC or social security number. Basically, it's the equivalent. DUNS number, which is also known as a PAYDEX score. And then there's a couple other things that are important, but just make sure that if you get to that point, you speak to the specific lenders that you want to go work with, and you find out what their requirements are and their underwriting process is, and you meet their requirements if that's what the type of lender you want to work with. I know that companies like Chase Bank and Bank of America, that they do work with business entities, they typically like to see that they have a website, they have a business address, and they have a good PAYDEX and EIN, Equifax, and Experian. Is it Experian? Yeah, I think it's Experian. Equifax and Experian credit scores. So credit scores for businesses aren't from 0 to like 850 or 900 like they are for most of us as being an individual. They're 1 out of 100, or they're 0 out of 100. 0 means you've never paid your stuff on time and you're delinquent as all heck. And 20% means that you're of the total businesses in your field, you are of the 20% that pay their bills on time. If you pay your bills early, the earlier you pay them and the more consistency you have, you start to get a higher score. When you get to between 80 to 100, basically what that means is that's your report card saying that you pay your bills on time or ahead of time. Just because you pay your bills on time as a business entity doesn't necessarily mean you'll have a 100% credit score. It actually means you'll have closer to an 80% credit score, which means you, just like 80% of the businesses, pay your stuff 80% of the time, or 80%, you're in the 80 percentile of businesses that pay their stuff. So basically that's all that means. There are credit building books that I would recommend. Business Credit Decoded, that one's a great one on how to build credit. I've read it twice. It's helpful. It's a good place to start if you don't have any experience with it. But having a credit score, having a PAYDEX score, having an Experian report and an Equifax report specific for your business is going to take your business very far long term, because it's going to determine where you do business should you get a business office. So, kind of creating an outline and a business plan, a business model, understanding where you want to do business and what you want to do specifically is kind of I think the first or the second step after you've kind of determined why you want to, or what your motivation is behind your business, because it kind of sets you up for success. And so what I did is I sat down, I said, okay, I want to do real estate. Okay, what do I want to do in real estate? Fix, flip, wholesale, buy and hold, specific to residential. Okay, how many properties do I want to do a year? 24. Okay, 24. How much capital do I need to do that? I need this much capital. How much other capital do I need to have the other 90% loan to value and construction loans? Okay, I need this much money. What is my business model? How am I going to acquire those properties? How am I going to sell them? Who am I going to sell them to? Where am I going to find those buyers? Answering all of those questions and kind of getting that accumulated and coming up with a business plan that's very brief, 1 page, 1 to 2 pages tops, is kind of giving me the direction I need to say, okay, I have what I need to do in terms of creating that business. What is my next step? Okay, maybe how do I want to get the funds? Where do I need to go to get those funds? What kind of conventions do I need to be at? Where am I more likely to raise capital for this? Do I need a syndication, or can I just make 3 touches with other people who I know have money and then pitch this to them and see if there's something they're interested in, and actually just making them lend the money to me as if they were a lending institution. So like there are different things. If I went out and said, hey, I need specifically this much of capital, this is how long I'm going to do it, this is the interest rate I'm going to pay you, yada, 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 that's considered, I would need a syndication. If I go up to someone and I say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm not really looking for capital specifics, this is, what my long-term goal is, this is how I'm doing it, this is my business plan, sign a non-disclosure agreement, there's kind of not a whole lot of professionalism there's not a whole lot of sells going on in that process, but I'm just exchanging information respective to my business, then I can make 3 touches and eventually ask them, hey, is this something you're interested in? Because it moves from a professional relationship to a personal relationship, and it kind of loopholes the whole securities license thing. Obviously, talk to an attorney. It's different for every state. It's different for every situation. That's just how I've been advised to do things. As long as I'm not specifically expressing what type of stuff I'm doing in terms of capital and what I need, and I'm not specifically asking for money, then it's not actually syndicating or borrowing. It's just meeting in the middle, which is a way of seeing it. So, once you've created your entity and you've gotten your EIN number, your DUNS number, your triple B listed, your your business location, your website set up, there are a couple other things you want to accomplish too. Like you need to make sure that you have a bank account. And even if you're not using your business and you don't have revenue coming in, you want to have activity coming in and out of the bank account. Even if that means that you set up an auto draft coming from your personal account into that account every month, and then taking a specific portion out, and you use that account as a savings account, and you're making transactions every single month automatically, and you're just putting money in there and pulling money out for whatever purpose, you still should do that, because what that's saying is that you're maintaining that bank account, and creditors love that. They love to see you have revenue coming in, and you're making money. And even if you're not, you're just utilizing that for a specific purpose. So make sure that you create a bank account after you've created your website, you've gotten your address, you've listed the triple B, you've done your DUNS number, your EIN, and your entity setup. And you've created a business plan. You need to you need to have a general synopsis of what your business is going to do, what the objective is, what the mission statement is, where do you want to be with your business, where is it going to be in 5 years? How are you going to deploy capital? If you're going to attain assets, how are you going to obtain those? What kind of things are you going to be doing to make sure that you're following a specific type of purchase? For instance, my objective, my business plan specifically states that I will not exceed 60 to 70% of the current value of a home. So if I go purchase a property from a foreclosure website like auctions or Zero or xome.com or something, or I'm driving for dollars and I'm making offers on homes, and it's distressed, like there's a hole in the roof or something, my mission, my business model doesn't allow me to offer over 70% if it's distressed. If it's needs a lot of work, or I have to go in and re-level the floor because it's on a slant, or like I said, there's a hole in the roof and I have to patch something in there, that I can't offer full value for that, because it's not worth market value, because there's a hole in the roof. So I'm going to have to come in and fix that, or I'm going to have to pay someone to come in and fix that. I don't know how to fix roofs, so I'm going to have to pay a contractor on top of paying for supplies to come in and fix that roof. And so it has to make sense for me to be able to make money off of that, and also make sense for you to be able to walk away clean. So typically what I like to look for are distressed properties with issues like that, where they're in their amortization schedule that allows for them to walk away from that. Or I work something out, so I come in with a construction loan and then I later list their house. So that's predominantly what my business model consists of. And that's just for me to say, this is how I'm going to deploy capital. This is where I'm going to specifically do it. This is how I'm specifically going to do that. And then next, you want to kind of determine what your entity structure is going to look like in terms of employees. For instance, a corporation requires a specific amount of board members. You have to have 3 to up to 12. So actually, depending on the type of corporation, you don't even need people on your board of directors. An S Corp doesn't require more than one person, and that's different for every state and requirements and stuff. But from where I'm at currently in Arizona, I don't require more than one person to be on my board for my S Corp. It's just me, and that's it. Eventually, when I do grow and I do convert all of my stuff to C Corps and I make that C Corp pay the taxes for everybody, then I will have probably 6, but I will be the primary shareholder. I will hold 51% of the total shares. No one else will hold any more. That way I can't get booted off of my own board to make those decisions. That's just my personal business model. But when you're creating an entity, whether it be corporation, LLC, or whatever, you need to determine what your management structure is going to look like. So for instance, if you're a corporation, it's your board of directors. They hire the executive members. The executive members hire your VPs and your upper management, and your VPs hire your employees that actually manage the day-to-day stuff. So typically, if for a new business that's starting out, it's your board of directors / executives. They hold the same positions. And then you also hold the VP positions, and you also hold the employee positions because you're starting a new business. But for larger corporations like Walmart, for instance, they have a board of directors. They hire the CEO. The CEO hires the CFO, the marketing experts, the CAO, which is chief accounting experts, the CMO, chief marketing experts, the COO, chief operations experts, and they're all underneath the executive. And then they have their assistants and their VPs and then their employees. So you need to determine what that corporation structure is going to look like. How many board members do you want in 15 years from now when you're a successful business? What's your CEO? Are they going to be, what's your executive structure going to look like? Is it going to be CEO above everybody else? And then the CEO reports directly to the chief of the board of directors or the director board? Or is it going to be CEOs in line with every other executive, like the CFO or the COO? Or do you not even have a chief executive? You just have a bunch of VPs. And so that's another thing you need to figure out. You need to determine your executive board. You need to determine your director's board. You need to determine your employee structure. How many employees do you want to have? Long-term goals, not even just where you're at now. Long-term, where do you want your entity to be? How many employees are you expecting to have? Fuck it, just put a random ass number down on a piece of paper, and if that's what you want to do. Me personally, every single entity I have, I don't want more than 150 people on it, because psychology has shown that it's hard to remember more than 150 people in a business. So if every single business I own has 150 people in it tops, then I should be able to memorize everyone's name specific to that business. Now, obviously, when I get a little bit bigger, that may change, or if I choose to go sole proprietor later on in life or whatever, like that, it could always change. And that's part of being adaptable. I mean, who knows? Maybe I could just be an entity that outsources everything. Like maybe I make t-shirts and I outsource all of my work to a random supply chain company in China. And then I outsource all of my accounting and stuff to an accounting firm in India, and all of my customer service goes to Vietnam. Like, I could do that. I could outsource all of that stuff overseas and outsource it to other companies and still be just successful collecting just the revenue or the profits. So that's another thing too that you can do. I mean, it's just determine your structure of how you want your business to look and what your employees are going to look like. And then you kind of want to have a bylaws. Bylaws can range anywhere from regulations, specifically like, oh, this is what human resources should look like. And this is what employees can and can't say in the workplace, and risk management stuff to prevent getting hurt at work, or sexual harassment or equal opportunity stuff, to, okay, this is how many people need to vote on the board of directors in order to make a decision happen. This is who's going to make the primary decision should the board not be able to reach that without him. This is how many people need to be present to be able to make those decisions if we're not a C Corp in accordance with the law. I mean, it's just, bylaws are basically like the laws of the business and what they are doing. It's different for every entity type. It's different for every business model. It's different but the idea is predominantly the same from business to business. It's just what you specifically do. And they don't have to be publicly given. They can be internal, and they can be held specifically within the board of directors or executive members. So you need to make sure that you have that. You don't necessarily have to have it if you're operating as a sole proprietor or a miscellaneous contractor, but it is something that you should keep in mind if you want to grow. And the next is the business logo and marketing. More or less, you want to get your name out there. Who are you? What are people going to see when they think of your business? Is it going to be an M like McDonald's? Yeah, like what are you going to do to position yourself in people's mind so they see something driving down the side of the road and say, oh, that's that business. So how are you going to position yourself in people's mind with your business logo? When you hand a business card out, what are they going to see? Is it going to be your logo, or is it just going to be a picture of your face? Like, those kinds of things are important. So how you market yourself with your business logo and what your goal is important. So before you can really get into diving into each one of these processes, it's kind of important to kind of lay it out and figure out what specifically you need for yours. I mean, you may not even need to list yourself on the Triple B. You may not need to create a website. You may be a word of mouth business. You may be a sole proprietor. You may not even need to create an entity or an EIN or a DUNS number. All you may need is a bank account and a website. Like, sitting down and actually creating all of these things and coming up with an idea of what you want this stuff to look like and how that's going to benefit your business long term, or even yourself, like, this is important. This is how you're going to be successful. And this is how I'm doing things. I created everything. I'm following everything in a specific order. I actually did my business address first because I needed my business address before I could create my entity structures. In terms of the process, I've created my address, my website, my entity. What's next is my EIN, my DUNS number, my Triple B, and my bank account. I've already gotten my business plans created. I've already kind of determined my executive structure, and I have a business logo from years ago that I've created and gotten rights to. So I'm probably going to end up using that again. I may change it around so I could, change the name a little bit so it fits the business model, but it's still, everything's kind of created except for the bylaws. And I don't even think I'm going to use bylaws because it's just me. I may end up outsourcing that a little bit later on towards 2 or 3 year mark to an attorney that specializes in writing bylaws. So that's just where I'm in my process. So just to kind of go over it again, so you have an idea, is entity type, EIN, DUNS number, Triple B, website, the address, bank account, business plan, determine your board and executive structures, your business bylaws, and your business logo, and how you're going to market that. I mean, those are the typical things that you need to successfully start an entity, like an entity itself, so you can kind of have something to work with, so you can market yourself successfully as an actual business. I mean, you don't need all of these things. Like I said, you can be a sole proprietor, basically someone that just says, yeah, I fix toilets. I work whenever I'm available to work. Here's my personal phone number. I have a personal bank account. You pay the money into me, or you give me a check and I go cash it. Like, you can do that. But in terms of scaling and experiencing the actual business itself and creating something successful, you're just not going to do that. You can't do that as a sole proprietor. You're taking on all of the risk. If there's a mistake, you take on all of that risk. So I hope this stuff was helpful for you. I hope you guys kind of got something out of it. This is what I'm doing to actually work on my business rather than in it. So I'm kind of hoping, I'm going to go through every single one of these and what I did as they come about. Like, I've already created my entity structures, but I'll go through Arizona Corporation Commission's website and kind of show you how I did that and what you need to do so you can do it for $35. And then, I'll show you how to set your EIN up, your DUNS number, and I'll show you how to list yourself with Triple B and create a website and address. All that stuff's kind of really easy. It takes tops 10 minutes. It's the most expensive part is probably setting up your bank account, and you usually need about $500, depending on the business you go to, or the bank you go to, or the credit union you go to. Typically need about $500 to open a business account. And like I said, you should probably be rolling money into that as if it was a savings account, and then rolling money out of it. So it looks like you have revenue coming in and expenses going out. Even if you don't have anything and you're just using it as a savings account, creditors are going to love that because they're seeing you utilizing the bank account in some way, shape, or form. So you can actually qualify for Fundbox or Cabbage, or I think it's Loan to Go or something like that, which is it's a PayPal company that they use very similar processes to Fundbox or Cabbage, and you can qualify for easily $10,000 of line of credit because you have $1,000 in every month and $1,000 out every month, but you still have $1,000 balance. So just keep that in mind when you're creating your bank account or stuff like that. That what you do with your business and how you structure things is going to determine long term what your credit's going to look like as a business entity, and whether or not you need to personally guarantee things as an individual for the business. So I hope you found this stuff informative and it helps you and you kind of get an idea of where we're going next. I'll see you probably later this week to kind of go over the entity setup. So I'll see you guys later.